Hi, this is Cal Scott and Kevin Burke, and we're here on 67music.net.
Hello everybody, this is Steve again from 67 Music. In our continuing quest to bring you the best in Celtic music from in town and around the world, we've managed to sit with two forefront Celtic performers, Mr. Kevin Burke and Mr. Cal Scott. Welcome guys, welcome to 67 Music.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to talk about Cal Scott's new CD Carved Wood Box and a couple of other albums in a moment. But first, if I could, I would like to digress a little bit and learn a little bit of history from each of you on how you got into music in the first place and came to where we are today. And if you don't mind, I'll start with you, Kevin.
Sure.
We know that you came over from England and London, and I understand that Woody and Arlo Guthrie had something to do with that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was born in England and brought up there, but I moved over to Ireland. I spent a lot of time in Ireland all the time I was growing up. Both my parents were from a place called Sligo in the west of Ireland, and they were quite young when I was born, so both sets of grandparents, my grandparents, were still alive when I was a child. So I had lots of people to visit when I was over there and places to stay, so I used to go there a lot and visit both sides of the family because they were only a few miles apart. And it was an area where there were a good few musicians, and a lot of people around there liked to play music, and it was just part of the way of life, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then in the early 70s I was visiting some friends in West Clare, and one morning I went into a bar, probably 11 o'clock in the morning, and there were some Americans sitting there, and I presumed that they were tourists. And in a way they were, but they were special kind of tourists. They were musicians, music tourists, I suppose. And they had been playing at the Cambridge Folk Festival in England and had a few days off, and decided to go to Ireland and find out where there might be some music. So they got to Dublin and went to a famous Irish music bar there called O'Donoghue's, and someone said the best music this weekend is probably in West Clare. There's a little festival going on down there where there's a lot of great music, and it's it's a small festival for aficionados, It wasn't a big commercial event at all. So anyway, these people, it turned out, it was Arlo Guthrie and some of his friends and a few of his band members. So they started playing, and I was paying probably a bit more attention than I ought to have been, because they started asking me questions. They didn't say, "What are you looking at?" but maybe that's what they were thinking. But of course I was very intrigued because they were excellent players. There was a guy called Gib Gilbo, a fiddle player, Cajun fiddle player, and a guy called Jeffrey Outlaw playing mandolin, John Pillar playing guitar, great guitar player, and Arlo himself, of course, a lovely musician. So we met and we got friendly and hung out for a few days, and then a few weeks after they went back, I got a letter saying, we're going to be doing a record around October, or November maybe, and if you ever wanted to come over to America, that'd be a good time, and especially because of the change in colours here in Massachusetts. The trees are pretty spectacular. So I thought about that, and I also remember Arlo, as we drove around Ireland, Arlo was saying, there aren't many trees around here, are there? And I was thinking, that's a really bizarre thing to say. I mean, there's a few trees over there right now. Look. And then we drive another while, and there's another few up there. Look. And over on that hill, there's 10 or 20 trees up there. What's he talking about? But of course, when I finally got his part of Western Massachusetts, and it was in October, and the fall colours were at their most spectacular. I remember going up on top of this hill and looking around 360 degrees. All I could see was trees. So I understood then why Arno was saying there aren't many trees in the west of Ireland. But anyway, through that chance meeting and my excursion over here, I ended up going to Hollywood and meeting a few musicians out there who really impressed me, and the whole scene was really nice. And mostly, I saw enough of the kind of unpleasant side of Los Angeles too. But just sitting around and playing was great with these guys. And I was kind of intrigued at what they were doing with their traditional music. So I remember thinking, I wonder if that would ever happen in Ireland, this kind of modern view of traditional music coming from the youth of the country, you know. And as it happened, 3 or 4 years later, I was in a band called the Bothy Band, which is kind of, it carries that mantle to this day. You know, it changed the way people looked at the instrumental part of Irish music.
Certainly.
So that's, I never met Woody though.
Oh, okay.
I never met Woody. But I met Arno, his brother, and his sister, and his mom. Great people to hang with. Very funny.
Can I ask, what were you touring through Portland? And if so, I understand Hoyt Axton recommended, hey Kevin, you might want to go check out Portland. And so, how did you end up putting down roots here?
Yeah, what you said first. I came here with Micheál O'Donnell, the guitarist from the Bothy Band. The Bothy Band was kind of winding down. And we over the course of the Bothy Band, we developed into a duo. You know, the Bothy Band often got asked to play at events or to play at various concerts, and we just couldn't do it as a band. But often what would happen is 2 or 3 of us would show up. You know, we'd say, well, the band can't come, but we can send 2 or 3 guys along. And Micheál and I were living together for a while. We rented a house together. So it was often convenient for Micheál and I to go as the kind of representative of the band. And we'd play a bit together. And of course we couldn't play the band material because most of it was arranged for 6 people. So we started developing our own repertoire for these events. And gradually it became a kind of an item. When the Bothy Band was off for a period of time, we would go away and do little tours on our own, and we'd often go to France or England or different places and play. Micheál used to live in Brittany and loved going over there and loved the Breton music, so we used to go over there quite a bit together. So anyway, we came over here to play on the west coast, and it was the time of the gas shortage, and we got stuck because we couldn't get gas to drive to the next gig, or maybe we could drive to the next gig but we couldn't get back, you know. So we had to rearrange the tour in a way that in a way that would maximise our travel possibilities. But we did end up missing lots of concerts. Anyway, we were stuck in Northern California or Southern Oregon, and we were wondering what to do. And Micheál said, you know, there's a couple in Portland and that I used to know back in Ireland. And I think I have their phone number. Maybe we could call them and stay there. Because we'd decided we're going to have to skip 2 or 3 days and just go straight to Portland. we were due to play. We were due to just arrive, play one night, and leave the next day, but we ended up coming 2 or 3 days early, and turned out that the two people we went to visit were Bill Bulick and his wife Carol. They used to own Artichoke Music. They started Artichoke Music. Yeah. So we stayed with Bill for a few days, and it turns out Bill plays the flute, and he was involved in running the concert. And it was, we arrived in Portland on fumes. I remember the we were driving a Mustang, and we went. The needle hit empty around Salem, and it was about 2 in the morning. And I remember thinking, God, I don't know if we're going to make it. But we came up I-5, and I remember going into northwest Portland and in the dead of night, and we just made it. Exactly, exhausted. I was exhausted. I did all the driving, and we were wrecked. But we made it, and we were made to feel very welcome, and we had 2 or 3 days to kill, and of course we were looked after, and finally we did the concert, and people loved it, and we had another day or two, I think, after the concert. But anyway, we finally took off. But then in a few months' time, we had to come back and do these concerts that we'd missed. So but it wasn't enough to come back for just a few concerts, you know. So we wanted to get a few more to make it worthwhile. So a couple of months later, we came back and we did that second trip, and we based it in Portland because that's kind of where we were when everything went wrong, you know. So we spent another week or 2 or more, I can't remember, but spent a while here, and you know, got to know the place a bit and got to like the place. And in the meantime, we found out that the Botty band was probably not going to continue. So we said, well, you know, Portland seems nice, we'll just stay here. There's nothing much to go back for. We'll stay here for a few months and see what happens. So I'm here 30 years later, still waiting for something to happen.
Something will kick in, Scott.
Yeah, it has to someday.
Patience is a virtue, right? Now, what I don't know if a lot of people know, but Cal Scott is a composer, and he's a singer and a songwriter, a film scorer, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, Cal, if we could.
Sure. I grew up in a musical family. My father was a high school band director, and here in Oregon, I'm 4.5 generations deep in Oregon. Great-great-grandparents, covered wagon, the whole thing. Anyway, my dad was a high school band director, and I grew up in La Grande, and was always around music from the very beginning. And we moved down to Portland in about '65, and the last quarter of college, I was a folk singer, and a pal of mine ran a bar downtown, which was at the time the hip place to play, called Frankenstein's in the 70s. And he said, you should come down and audition. And I said, well, why? I'm just a solo folkie, and they always have bands there. And he says, no, you should do that. So the Tuesday slot came open, and so I went down and auditioned, and didn't ever look back. I got the gig and started playing music professionally, and had a serpentine of all different kinds of bands through the years. And while I was doing that, in the early days, a friend of mine was a disc jockey on the then brand new station called Kink. And he would come hear my band all the time, and a friend of his was making a film, a documentary. And his friend said, help me find some music. And so he said, well, I know this guy Cal, and he writes music. Maybe you guys should talk. And so that's really how it started. And so I scored his film, and then another one, and then another one. And here it is 30 years later. I'm still writing music for documentaries. And that's how Kevin and I met. I was doing scoring a PBS special about the troubles in Northern Ireland. And I knew of Kevin. I didn't know Kevin, but I knew of him, friends of friends. So I got his number and called him up and asked if he would consult with me on this, because I wanted to base the whole score on traditional Irish music. So Kevin came over and we talked about it, and he played a whole bunch of tunes, and we picked out several that would be appropriate, and some of them appeared as just straight traditional tunes, and some of them I used the themes and made other arrangements of, and they weave throughout the whole film. So that's how we met. And then we just really enjoyed working together, and we played, I think, on one other project, some other thing somewhere. And we just decided, well, maybe we should do some recording. So we did some recording over several years, really. We would get together and try things out, tried some stuff, and we had a CD's worth, and went, well, maybe we should put it out. So that's what we did, Black River, and we released it in 2007, I guess.
I have no idea.
And so that's when we started touring as well.
Oh, I'm glad, Cal, that you brought up Across the Black River, because as I read it correctly, that was the first recording that was on your new fledgling label, Loftus Music. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I had done a CD with a guitarist called Jed Foley, who I used to play with a lot. And up until then, you know, for the previous 20 years or so, most of my recordings had been through a company called Green Linnet back in Connecticut. But they were kind of drawing to a close, and my contract with them was about to expire. So when Jed and I were recording, I said, you know, would it be okay with you guys if we did it independently? And they said, sure. So that's what we did. But I discovered that by not saying it was from a record company, it didn't get much attention. People didn't pay much attention to it. So I thought, well, next time I'll say I'm in a record company. So I formed a record company, which is just, you know, you register and you give yourself a name, and now you're a record company. But the day before I was a record company, and the day after I was a record company, I didn't feel any different, you know. It's just an excuse to put out CDs and not have to deal with other record companies, you know. Because when Green Linnet closed, I didn't want to go through that whole rigmarole again of you know, negotiating contracts and talking to different executives and bargaining with them and pleading for a bit more control or a bit more advertising or what, you know. It was just something I never really liked, and I thought, well, if I'm the record company, then
You're the boss.
at least I know where it went wrong. I know who to blame when it goes
Did you
wrong.
have similar woes or experiences like that when you were recording early on?
You know, I never was signed to a label. I did lots of recording through the years, but I formed my own label before Kevin did, and put out a couple of records, sort of contemporary jazz records on that label, and it was sort of the same deal. It was just about at that time where the economics rolled over to where it became way to your advantage to own everything. You know, if you were assigned to a label, they could certainly get it out there, but if it was not big pop music, if you weren't selling hundreds of thousands of units, people in niche markets, Irish music and lots of different kinds of jazz and stuff, you might sell 10 or 20,000 records total, and if you're getting from the label, if you're getting $1 a piece, well, it doesn't take an Einstein to figure that out. If you own it all, and you can keep $10 of it instead of $1 of it, then the whole economics flops over, and that started happening in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, and that's what I did, and that's the same thing when Kevin formed his label. It just became apparent that particularly when you're selling records, a lot of it is from the is on the gig, you know, after the concert, then that's where a lot of your sales come from.
Yeah, you know, our kind of music is not mainstream at all. So if you went to a CD shop when there still were lots of CD shops, you might find our records there, but you might not. Yeah. It wasn't. You know, the high street store was not the big outlet for our kind of music because it was such a niche market. So selling them at the concerts was the main income stream, and selling them to you know, people who genuinely like this kind of music, and they don't usually hear about it in the trade magazines, the music press magazines, or they by hanging out in the CD store.
It's from live shows.
Live shows and word of mouth, and so.
And that's the way it is today.
Yeah, and
It really is.
even more so now.
Yeah.
Even more so. So. So yeah, I put this record company. I gave myself a name, and it turned out I was a record company. And Across the Black River was the first one, and it was really successful. We were thrilled with the response. It was very encouraging. So we did another one then, called Sweet. I put out a couple of records with other groups I play with, but the next one that Cal and I did together was called Sweet, and the kind of centerpiece of that, if you like, because it was a set of traditional tunes arranged for a string quartet, and you know, Cal and I were talking about things that we might like to do, and I just said, you know, I've always been a bit disturbed by the kind of barrier between some people in the classical world and some people in the traditional world. Things have improved over the years, but there's still a marked lack of respect, I think, between the two schools, you know. So I thought it would be nice to bring those together, and Cal's skills as an arranger were kind of the perfect thing to get that together, and he was intrigued by the idea too. It was something he'd often thought about. So we did that for our second album, and we divided up the 10 tunes into 4 separate tracks, 4 movements, if you like, to use the classical parlance. 4 movements, and we called it the Irish Session Suite, and we performed it several times, both here in Portland and elsewhere, and thrilled with the way it came out. Very exciting for us when we unveiled it the first time.
So
nerve-wracking.
Are you all friends now with the orchestras and their?
Oh yeah, they can't get enough of us. In fact, we did a great concert last May. I haven't seen you much since then, have I? But through some of the musicians in our quartet, we met some other guys who were kind of intrigued at this whole idea. See, when we selected the classical musicians to work on the suite with us, we had access to lots of guys who could play, you know.
Sure.
But we wanted to find people who would be kind of intrigued at the fact that it was a bit outside the norm, you know. People who'd embraced the kind of oddity of the project. So we were really lucky. We found some great people, but through them we met other friends of theirs with like minds, you know. And one of them is a guy called Greg Ure, who puts on concerts. He's from a group called Parallel 45, and there's a gang of classical musicians who like to do things that again are not part of the regular repertoire. So last year he asked us to play at one of his concerts with another friend of mine called Gilles Apap, this French classical player who also plays Irish music and jazz and all kinds of things. So we had this
Real
concert
character.
at the old church, yeah, with two quartets, both doing their thing, you know, and we did our bit with the quartet, and we did some things together, and Gilles and I played a couple of things together, and Gilles did his own thing, and he played with the quartet. I think he scored some bluegrass tunes or something for the quartet.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
a really mad but fascinating evening. And I remember afterwards, I was saying, God, I so wish I was in the audience for that night, you know. It was almost a bummer to have to be up there.
Working.
Yeah, and
Seeing it from one
not
side.
really able to sit back in the seat and just laugh at it all, because it was great. Everything I heard I thought was great, and really good humoured, light humoured, you know. The music, a lot of it was pretty intense, you know, but and the musicianship was great.
Was stellar.
But
really, really
the whole atmosphere of the thing was so upbeat and entertaining. It was great. I loved it.
Cal, can I ask, when you guys are working together on Sweet or Black River or whatever it is you're doing, how do you guys, what's your working relationship? What do you feel you contribute, or what do you feel Kevin contributes? Is it a straight 50-50 contribution, or?
Well, we bring really different things to the table, and that's what makes it really fun. You know, I'm not deep in traditional Irish music. I've been playing this really since I started playing with Kevin, and a few years before that, and you know, so I bring an American guitarist's kind of aesthetic to it, but I've also had a lot of experience arranging and producing and stuff. So when we start working on a new set of tunes, Kevin will, you know, the traditional stuff, Kevin will bring the tunes in and have an idea about what kind of a set should be arranged, and we'll do that, and then we'll sit down and just try out different kinds of settings. You know, how would this work, and what kind of dynamic and tempo and all that kind of stuff. I think I bring some of that to the table that isn't often. It's a little different kind of spin on things than what some other guitarists might do. You know, but, and does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
We also have done a lot of original music. I've written a bunch of tunes for the records, and so has Kevin. And so there are things that fit into the sort of traditional genre, but they're newly composed. So I guess that can't be called traditional.
It can sound traditional.
Contemporary tradition.
Contemporary
Yeah.
traditional. Yeah.
I've always thought it was a great compliment to an artist when they can write something that sounds 1, 2, 3, 500 years old, you know. So if you can succeed at doing that, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun weaving in original tunes in the context of a set of tunes that have really old traditional tunes in them as well.
Yeah, I think the opening track on Across the Black River, I think I'm right in saying that the very first tune is literally hundreds of years old, followed immediately by a tune that Cal wrote. So that's only maybe 90 years old.
Very contemporary. Right after Joplin or the Ragtimes. Yeah.
So Cal, about 2 months ago now, I guess it's been, you released your latest quasi-solo effort, if I might call it that, Carved Wood Box.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a plethora of world-class musicians helping you, but it's a Cal Scott album.
It is.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I understand it took like 2 years to make this thing. So.
Mm-hmm. The way that the record started, the idea for it was I play usually a couple of tunes in the concerts that Kevin and I do, and I've been a songwriter for a long time. So I've done 2 original tunes in the sets that we do, and I wanted to have a record I could take out and sell when we tour. And so that kind of got it started, and I don't know. I started, I think, with what ended up being the carved wood box. Ended up being the title cut. Started with that, and then kind of worked it out. Some of the tunes are new tunes written in the last couple of years, and some of them are versions of things that I written a number of years ago. And I just originally it was going to be a pretty simple folky record, but then, you know, as you pursue the artistic process, you just go after whatever you think is going to make the particular song be right. So part of that exploration process is, well, what kind of support would be great on a tune like this, and so I got Kevin plays on 3 tunes, and I got a couple of great Nashville players to help out. A friend of mine, Craig Carruthers, songwriter, lives out in Nashville, and he has a lot of connections out there, and so he gave me a list of all the people that he knows, and so 3 of them, Andrea Zahn, who is a fiddler and a singer, plays with James Taylor's band, sings on 2 songs, plays on a couple. A guy named Jeff Taylor, who is a phenomenal accordion player, plays on. He's the accordion you hear on Jimmy's Waltz and on Will in the Wind. He tours with Elvis Costello. He worked me in on a session between Elvis Costello and a studio session with Paul Simon. I'm literally, and
That's
it was
fantastic.
like fantastic, you know. And then a woman named Allison Prestwood, who is a studio bassist there, first call studio bassist, who's played with just a whole list of amazing players. Played bass on a couple of tunes, and then a whole lot of other Portland players contributed, and you know, the whole thing took the shape that it ended up in. So it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and it's just released now. We did a CD release party on the 27th of January, and now start the promotional process to take it out to the rest of the world.
Okay, so coming up in 2013, is there anything else coming up, gentlemen, that's of note? I know I should show the audience, this is carved wood box, Cal Scott right here. Look this up on the internet, you'll recognize the cover there. And this is Sweet, Irish Session Sweet, that we were talking about earlier. These are 2 of the high water marks from Kevin and Cal, but don't be fooled, there's plenty of other recordings, seek them out. Anything coming up with you, Kevin, that we should know about?
Yeah, I just finished recording a new CD with the group I play with called the Celtic Fiddle Festival. 3 fiddle players and a guitarist. And the 3 fiddlers are all from a different part of the Celtic diaspora. So we have a Breton guy, Christian Lemaitre, playing the music from Brittany. And we have a guy from Quebec, Andre Brunet, playing some Quebecois music, and I'm supplying the Irish music. And the idea of the group is to show how distinct each style of playing is, and at the same time how compatible they all are. So when we play some solo tunes and we play as a group, and it started 20 years ago with the great Scottish fiddler Johnny Cunningham, who passed away probably 7 or 8 years ago. But this is our 20th anniversary. So we went back to Brittany. Johnny was always a big fan of the Breton music too. And we never recorded in Brittany, so we went back in January and recorded a couple of concerts and put the tracks together and mixed them all and got the cover done. It's just coming together now. I imagine it'll be about a month or 6 weeks before it's available.
Well, that's pretty soon then.
It's pretty soon, yeah. We've got a tour in the UK in June, and then a US tour in October, I think. So it'll be good and ready when we are, which is nice.
Do you guys tour together at all abroad? Or is it stateside here? What do you guys do live?
We've been to Ireland. Did we go to England as well? I can't
No.
remember. No.
No, not yet.
Yeah. We went
Will
to
you be
Ireland.
performing this year? Sorry, no, right.
Not much. It's a little bit slow this year. We're doing a teaching week at the Acadia Traditional School in Maine in July, and doing a performance or two at that school and around that time.
The Celtic fiddlers traditionally don't work a whole lot, which is probably one reason why we've been together for 20 years. So this year we're doing the anniversary album and 2 tours, one in Europe, one here. So that's quite a lot of work in itself. Doesn't leave a lot of time for other things. But we've got the teaching
Sounds like
week, and I've got a few other teaching weeks. I'm going to be an artist in residence in University of Washington, maybe towards the end of the year, and then go to Australia early next year. So
You
kinda
rack
busy.
up the frequent flyer miles, don't you?
sometimes, yeah.
How about websites, gentlemen? Cal, when somebody's going to want to learn more about yourself, where should they go?
CalScottMusic.com. I'm a master of my own domain.
Kevin, where are they going to go to learn more about you?
KevinBurke.com isn't a bad place to start, and the record company that we were talking about is called Loftus Music, so there's a LoftusMusic.com also, and the Celtic Fiddle Festival has a site, CelticFiddleFestival.com, and that should more or less cover it, I'd say.
Sounds wonderful, gentlemen. We thank you very much for sitting down with 67 Music and talking about yourselves and your wonderful recordings.
Very
Again,
good.
it's Carved Wood Box, Cal Scott, Seek It Out, and along with Suite, Irish Session Suite, Loftus Music, Kevin Burke, Cal Scott. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck the rest of this year and beyond, okay?
Thank you.
Alright, thank you.
This is Steve from 67 Music. We'll catch you again next time.